Good morning to everyone. Good to see all of you. Thank you for coming. You too. I am going to talk a little bit more about addiction. Specifically, I want to talk about the addiction to paybacks, to paying someone back for something they did or something we think they did. Payback. In other words, retribution, revenge. Are there any other synonyms? So and so. Tying that in with the three poisons, it is aggression. And it can start up in a very tiny, barely even noticeable area where someone has done something or said something or acted in a certain way, and the emotion of a reactive thing comes up, like blaming someone. Someone does, something happens, a situation, a person, or any combination of things, and then we react to it. That is extremely complicated. It's so complicated that there are no particular medicines for that other than the ones that just shut everything down. You know about those medicines? You take it and it just shuts everything down. So here we're talking about not particularly treating something in a relative way, other than a little bit, but we're talking about it or trying to address it by being aware of what it fundamentally is, rather than just pushing symptoms or effects around in such a way that they create less havoc in our mind stream, less anger, less jealousy, less shame. Manipulate. And I'm not saying that there aren't structures or ways of addressing this that are very powerful, convincing, and are worth millions. You know about those probably. In other words, by promoting something, you make it a merchandising situation. And it's not that that situation is wrong. Some of those things are very workable. Some of them are not all that expensive, and they will change how you feel, how you think in different ways, not always very predictable. You know what they are. There are activities that are very gentle, loving, beautiful to watch, and very benign. Call football. Nothing wrong with football. It's great, but if you're tied into that, you could say it. I wouldn't want to particularly accuse anybody being addicted to football. I'm not going to do that, but to really have a strong desire to always be there for that, because just one of the becauses there, because it takes you away from the maybe just boredom of being alive, or just what your job is like, or all the other things, or your family situation, the domestic, to get away from that. So it's a form of cover up called entertainment. Not wrong. It's not incorrect. And quite often people go in that direction the rest of their whole life, and it tends to work in some ways, maybe not so well in others. So in Buddhism, there's something called the five skandhas: form, feeling, perception, concept, and consciousness. It is a conceptual way of breaking down the whole body-mind complex into a kind of functioning. body. That's the first one. The other four are all about consciousness, or that part of the sensorium that we think we know about. We know very little about it. Form, feeling, this kind, and then the emotional feeling. You might say, which one? Well, all of them. Anything you can refer to as feeling, form, feeling. And then the next one, the third one, that's the perception impulse. Perception, we see something, and then there's an impulse around it. And that impulse is governed, actuated by fear, fear of other, fear of something, threat, something wrong, something's being threatened. And that, of course, can show up in so many ways. Someone just attacking us in some way that affects our idea, our idea of ourselves. In other words, they're critical of what we're doing, how we're acting, any number of things, including right up to and including our actual skin color. It's very complicated. We all know about prejudice. It's very powerful stuff. And so that third one of perception impulse, we see something and we don't like it, or we see something and we like to have more. That's really wonderful, isn't it? It's great. Let's see if we can't get a couple bushel of those. What are those?
Weed.
Wheats? More wheats, please. Wheaties?
No, that's what he said.
That private joke?
No, I don't think that's what he said.
Oh, okay. What, who said? You?
Do I think what?
Okay, we'll stop right there because I'm gonna get really mad, get some revenge. We perceive something, and the ego mind, the self-centered mind, the narcissistic mind, that area of the mind that is our so-called personhood, me and my stuff, my ideas, all the descriptors we have for that, everything from our nationality and how many brothers and sisters we had, and to how we were treated when we were a child, and how someone else was treated that got a better shake than we got on. It's just a constant elaboration of us and me and how I feel and what I think and what do you think about what I'm thinking about what you're thinking. But we all know that chatter that goes on that reinforces. And if you practice sitting meditation very long, so I'm saying at least a few years, you'll notice you're less and less interested about all the discursive thought of the gossipy kind of stuff that goes on that people get some kind of, shall we say, relief from. Sometimes it's entertaining. Again, not wrong, but that's some of us, we want that. We want that kind of camaraderie. Is that a word for it? Maybe friendship, hanging out with the crew. Sometimes we want that. But if there's been a lot of awareness practice for you, you're probably going to be less and less interested in any kind of cover up, no matter how subtle it is, because your interest, more than likely, is to see the truth. You want to know the truth. At least that's why I'm sitting here. So coming back to the title or the talk or the topic is addiction to a payback or to retribution or to revenge or to any of those other ways of trying to, something happens, we don't like it, and we want to stop that or punish that situation or that person. It might even go this way. It's a very odd kind of emotional dynamic that happens there. That is one of the three poisons called aggression, which is also supported by ignoring, and it's also by shutting down on certain parts of the situation where we get to actually attack someone based on our projection onto them. You have to ignore what's in front of you in order to attack anything. Because if you really see fundamentally deep in your heart or deep in what's in front of you, you would not attack anything. Because you don't see any other. You've liberated yourself from that. This is what I'm here to recommend to you. Go within, find out who you are, get your identity from no one but consciousness, not from mom or dad or your guru or your family or the people you work with. So it starts out in a very tiny way. There's a tiny little movement that's aggressive. And if you don't begin to see that at its source, where that aggression starts out, then it will just have you. The aggression will be out and on into your vocal cords or into your finger pointing or into a weapon, possibly in some situations where you gotta stop that. And you have all kinds of commentary. You'll have tons of nomenclature around why you're justified in doing something. Pardon me, I don't mean to scare anyone. Scare myself. So, but why am I'm being expressive? Because I'm very interested in you hearing what I have to say. And since I'm kind of full of myself and kind of a phony anyway, not about not being a phony. Please don't clean up your act. Find out who you are. You aren't going to be able to help anybody if you've somehow solved all of your problems and want to promote that to everybody as some kind of special cup of tea. $5, please, that kind of thing. Transactional. You find out. You see, because to look at the anger or the aggression and try to do something to cover that up, to stop that. I'm not saying there aren't relative ways. There's all kinds of therapy, all kinds of transactional therapy, and there's a cognitive behavioral, and I could get on the list. If I were a scholar or a scientist in that area, maybe I could come up with quite a number. The last time I counted in Wikipedia, I think there was over 150 different kinds of therapy by name. The first time I looked was I think it was in 2000. I think there was only 80 then. So might not be funny to you, but it is to me. So it's about, I'm here to promote, to encourage awareness about this, not just descriptions and judgments and solutions for how you can get rid of this. Because if you see what the fundamental cause of this is, a fundamental issue, this cannot grow legs. There won't be any aggression, at least the aggression that shows up in the later stages of your practice, if I could put it that way. Well, you'll be responsible for your aggression. Finally, you're not going to lock and load anymore. The aggression will come up and crawl right up your rib cage, and it's yours. It's kind of an odd form of generosity where you just receive everything that shows up by giving it your attention completely, totally. I'm not saying there won't be concepts, ideas, judgments riding side saddle along with you, or along with the aggression, trying to get you to do something about it. Payback, you can't let them get away with that. You know those little stories that come up? Something just happened 20 minutes ago, and you kind of you listen to the instructions. What do people say? Just drop it, man. Let's just hang out. Just drop it. You cannot drop it. You cannot let go. Any action to stop, let go, push away, reinforces the primary misunderstanding which is there isn't an individual anyway. So all of these approaches will have some relative success depending on the karma that comes into the therapist's office. Depends on how complicated that is. You might be able to just do some practices. I'm sure you know a lot about that. A person comes in and says, I'm really angry and I just want to have revenge, or I can't help getting in a fight with my partner. And they say this, and this, and I just can't put up with that. So there's a little bit of payback coming in there, even though it might be disguised or in the clothing of logic. Or it might be, you might say, well, I have to tell them how I'm feeling. I have to be me, that kind of thing. Constant comment in the background of the ego mind. So I'm here to say to all of you, please, you don't have to be a Buddhist. You don't have to be a monk. You don't ever have to talk to me about it, but you might want to spend some time by yourself in your room or in your wherever, and sit down and look at the floor, look at the wall, and watch the mind come and go and 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 come and go, and watch that which is observing the coming and going is not doing anything. Even that mind is not even observing, although that's the practice. Watch what moves, observe, just receive. That's the practice. Ground, path, and fruition. Ground is suffering, difficulty, stress, anger, revenge, paybacks. How do I work with this? Intense emotions, where somebody's done this, this, and this, and the very easiest way out is just a blame. Because I've got it here, and if I say, Jim, what do you think about what she said about what I did? Well, I think she's wrong, and I think I agree with you, Melvin. Thanks, Melvin. You see what I'm saying? It's so easy to reach out and find agreement, or even disagreement will help you. Someone say, well, you're responsible for that. That's not their fault. You're the one who's creating all that. Don't lecture anybody. They don't want to hear you. Even as a teacher, I can say that I have to be very careful about what I say to anybody, because even as a teacher, if I say something that just doesn't have the right angularity on it, doesn't fit into someone's idea of what a teacher is and what a student is, that ends that so-called relationship. That's why Trungpa Rinpoche once said, contemplate this for a few years. The best relationship is no relationship. He's using concepts, and he's pointing right directly at something we have constant issue with: relationship. This person and that person. As long as there's a relationship, there's an expression of the original misunderstanding, which is self and other, duality, Advaita, or Dvaita, which is duality. It's not about stopping it, getting rid of it. It's about being aware. If you're aware of it, then you eventually return, you could say it that way, to before your parents were even born, consciousness only. So the idea there is not to find some kind of a structure or solution or palliative that will stop your aggression or stop you from constantly being addicted to anytime anything happens or anytime anyone does anything. You've got to stop it. You've got to go after it. You fight with your spouse, or you fight with your neighbor, you fight. And even if you try to stop fighting by going to peace, that's why you'll hear me say, don't go to war, don't go to peace. Take no position. You take the position of peace, this with somebody who wants war, and they're going to turn you into a murderer. Literally, no. Well, maybe. But they don't want the situation is such that is so powerful that if you do not realize that you are not a separate being, someone over there, right next to you, when you try to go to peace, wants warfare. They do not want peace. They want to reinforce the polarity of their original belief that I'm a separate being and you're just disrespecting me by acting passive. You all know that. You've all run into that a little bit in your relationship dynamics where you're ready to give up. Okay, let's just, not going to happen. Well, maybe sometimes, maybe it happens enough so that you think there's some kind of hope that you can settle everything. You see the warfare that's going on in the world. This has been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We didn't just suddenly lose it last week. It's a rotation. It's samsara. Always just seeing the rotation in your own life ought to give you a little bit of a clue. You get up in the morning, you're around for a while, and then everything collapses and you go back into non-existence. Dream is not particularly existing. So the idea here that I'm pointing to or encouraging you to do, if you have addictions of any kind, not just the one to retaliation, the one where you go to some kind of blame, albeit very subtle. Maybe your personality style is such that people would really never realize you had any anger in you at all because you never expressed it particularly. You just did what? What is that? What's the common phrase of that? Stuffing it. So that's called an active version of ignorance. You put it away. And some people are extremely good at that. They can put a bundle of that in the back closet of their mind and lock the door, bolt it shut, put some boards over it, nail them down, and never look at that again. But the nature of consciousness is without walls. So the illusion of the self is still going to operate just outside that locked, bolted door that is hammered shut. It needs to be done with the awareness. You need to see it with the awareness if you're interested. And if you're not, then you can go ahead and obviously work with the passion, aggression, and ignorance, hope and fear, anger, resentment. The resentment part is, you can see it in politics. It's just difficult stuff. Very difficult, especially when it manifests out of a couple of people who somehow get into the loop of the powerful person for 8.5 years, whatever it may be, and suddenly they get to bring everybody into their purview, give them all armaments, and tell them to go kill or starve people. There's no one to blame for that. If you think there is, you'll go to war too. And you'll justify it. Don't do that. Try to work with this with your awareness rather than some kind of entering the midst of an incredible landslide that started way before any of us were born. And it's just now the leading edge of that landslide is showing up in different parts of the world. I don't have to name them if you watch the news at all. You have to see this. Otherwise, we get tied into it. And next thing you know, we're fighting, we're blaming, we want to pay back those terrible people, punish them. I'd love to have some questions around this. As I sometimes say, very aggressively, come and get me. Isn't that what the guy said that they just shot? No, that wasn't too good. So I don't mean that. Don't do that. I'm saying, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. It's heartbreaking to see all the suffering in our own families, in our communities, in our world. We have to do this with awareness. Otherwise, everybody wants to fight with everybody else and wants to win and wants to be the person that's on the side of the right. As long as you pick sides like that, it's just, we see it everywhere. We see it in our families. We see it in our communities. We see it in politics. Very, very difficult. I want questions. You have them? Go ahead.
Milk bowing. When you say don't go to war, don't go to peace, and in a situation where we're in a relationship and we see somebody struggling and they're throwing their aggression towards us, what do we do?
Well, simply put, insofar as you can, you receive it. You just listen. I mean, if they come at you with a club, you might want to back up or go in another room or leave the city. It's very situational what you should do in that area. Some situations are so far beyond doing anything, you can't do anything, but it just comes at you. You can't really fight back in any way that doesn't add to more warfare. Can you say anything specific about it?
Milk bowing. Sometimes just an innocuous statement like, I like something, someone can take that and find something wrong with it and throw something at you, like it's seemingly out of the blue.
Yes.
So, what is the response if it's not going to war or
Okay.
going to peace?
Yes. Listen to what they've said, and through the insight you've been having, apparently you're a monk, you've been meditating for many years, the insight that you're beginning to put others before yourself. If you're listening to these vows, or if you recite these vows, you have to put others before yourself. And when I say that, if this person said this or did this, then you have to listen to them, and you have to realize by truly receiving that wants us to payback, or to show them how what they're saying has no import, or say, well, how can you possibly say, you know what I mean? How can you possibly say that? That's ridiculous. All I said was this, this, and this, and suddenly you're making a federal case out of it. That's the kind of response. That is the beginning of the payback situation. That's where the addiction starts. And so what I would say to you is receive it and endeavor to put others before yourself. And the other one is the third of the three pure precepts. Be with all things, whatever shows up, be that. So whatever shows up in your mind stream as a reaction, receive it. Let it hurt. Even the word let is extra. It just hurts. It's just that you don't shake your fist at the rain, do you? You don't
I
do it.
don't,
Huh? You haven't so lately?
not lately.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is, I'll take it a little further, but more in storybook form. If this person is doing or saying this, and you probably know them a little bit, you would see how this person hides out from their suffering. Anytime they can find a way to get rid of the suffering by blaming anybody for how they feel. So what you've done or said may have a certain shape that triggers areas in their consciousness where they've managed, temporarily successful, to lock out incredible suffering and pain. They're not going to look at it. They've gotten rid of it. So you come along with your sparkling personality and you casually talk about this, and that triggers something that they do not want to look at. And you've just forced them to look at it from their point of view, but they're not going to take responsibility for that. So how do you do that? You blame. I'm feeling terrible because you said this and this. And instead of actually realizing it's just a trigger, I'm just having this emotion. No, we want to get revenge. We're going to go back after the person. That's why mind training is so very, very important. More if you have it.
Kabowing, when we see that person's fear in that situation, is there any need to talk to them about it?
Probably less is better in that area, but perhaps you certainly don't want to tell them maybe they should get a therapist. I mean, they may need to, or they may if this person is a meditator. No, it's so varied. I mean, probably less is better. And you can talk with your body language. If someone is attacking you, drop your gaze. Drop your gaze. I don't say tip your head, but just drop your gaze. And this gives the person a little bit, it's a kind of response that comes out of how you look. And even if you don't do that, be very aware of your body posture when you feel yourself tense up and be defensive. Because that feeling of defensiveness, we don't like that feeling. And the way to get rid of defensiveness is to attack. You go right from passion to aggression. The two poisons. And what's in the middle? Ignorance. You can do it. It will not be comfortable. First noble truth, life is suffering. And he didn't lay out all the ways this is going to be suffering, probably for the rest of your life. It's just that maybe towards the end of your life, you'll finally understand that noble truth. Do you have more?
Kabowing, that fear that seems to arise in another person, then I start to see my fear. And that feels like where I want to pay back right then.
Yes. Well said. It's not funny. My laughter is coming out of just seeing this happens to all of us all the time if we're in any kind of relationship dynamic. It's very especially difficult if we're feeling very sincere, like we want to solve this, and here's a person who's determined to fight with us. Sometimes called a marriage. Oh, are you smiling?
I've been in one of those.
As have I. It's very difficult. You cannot solve it in a relative situation. It is a landslide of otherness manifesting and the illusion of the present moment, which is not disconnected from 500 years ago. Don't believe anything I'm saying. You find out. Go here. Want some directions? Go within. Because if you go without, all you're going to find is more chaos, disguised as peace. Disguised. Yes, sir.
Sokuzan, is there a difference or a way to see the difference between just receiving anger and not outflowing, between that and locking it up like you described? Because couldn't those look the same to someone else? But is there a way for us to know the difference?
I think I'm following you a little bit, but seems like there's something fundamental besides the know the difference. What if you did know the difference? Then what?
If I had a choice, I would do what you said. I would receive the anger without doing anything with it. But is
Do you
there?
think you need to have a choice to do that?
I don't think there is a choice.
Okay, so what's your question?
I guess I'm wondering about those two aspects of stuffing it or receiving it.
Okay. I understand why you would wonder about that, so give me a specific question. You can be the same one again, we'll take another swing at it.
How do we receive anger and not stuff it?
Very good. So how do we receive anger and not stuff it? So as you probably know, if you've listened to me very much or studied the Dharma very much, going to have to train your mind to watch the way you cannot do that. You have to fail at that. And when I say that, I'm not saying it's not a failure in the relative understanding that quite often shows up in our society, in our schools, in our with our relationship with our children and so on. It's seeing that no matter what you do in your mind stream or with your so-called self-control, if that particular difficulty wants to come out of the cloud and into the end of your finger or out of your vocal cords, you may not be able to, you may fail at trying to control that. That seems to be, it's a path of awareness about the situation rather than a path of seeing how this works through the logic and reason. And there's plenty of that out there about how that works and what to do with that, whether you need psychotherapy or you need some type of therapy that will address that. And it might get you to have a feeling that you're succeeding, that you're getting better at controlling your feelings, your emotions, your reactions, your thought patterns, and your activity with your vocal cords or with your shaking fist. So it's about awareness. Biased. I don't think you can stop it or change it or act differently. Go ahead, please.
Chokuda allowing, is that like saying, I might have to look at how I stuff it for a while or long?
Yes.
Or forever?
You might not, the very nature of stuffing something or ignorance is you won't know it. So you don't really, it's too successful. It's just, this is ignorance. Have you ever been talking to someone and had them look at the back of look at their hand like this? Ignorance. You're talking to them and they're shaking their head and they're going, or fiddling with their clothes or moving their fingers or something, or pulling on one of their fingers. This is ignorance. Body, mind are not two separate things, nor are they the same thing. This is why it's impossible to make any sense out of this scientifically, because the science does not have access to consciousness. I don't know if it ever will. It has access to things that arise in consciousness called thoughts, concepts, ideas, and something's dependable. Facts. Well, you noticed that the big fact that changed a few hundred years ago is the Earth is not flat. There's a few other things too, like describe gravity and why I can't just gravitate, why I can't just pick up or spin in circles and have everything stick to me like the Earth does. It's science. Tell me. Can you tell me? No, you can't. Or can you? We can't describe what consciousness is. But what we can do is we can spend some time in our life, whatever you have in your life, spend some time sitting down. You don't have to necessarily bow to altars or anything. That may help you, may need a structure to do this because it's extremely challenging. Because the ego does not want to be seen for what it actually is, an invention. It's unreal. It's constructed. Go ahead, sir.
Chokodao bowing is one way to see that I'm stuffing anger, or could be is having kind of a trigger that comes out of nowhere that's surprising to me.
I would say there's something to that. And the more you practice sitting meditation, which is all the forms of meditation that I've done or that you do for that matter, the most powerful one is to hold still and observe, not necessarily to do any of the other so-called practices or even tactics around that more.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Not to me bowing. I think earlier you said something like you have to ignore what is in front of you to attack anything.
Yes.
It seems like sometimes there starts to be an awareness of the fact that I'm ignoring, and that the attack kind of seems to be arising. And in that, sometimes that makes me want to turn towards isolation or leaving the situation or things like that. And I'm wondering if that too is ignorance.
Yes, I would say that it is. Only you are going to really know. But anytime you turn away, it's just a stylized and active form of ignoring. To just body mind are not two separate things. Just like I'm saying something, my hands are doing this. It's not like, well, this is something different. What I'm saying is one thing, and this is something different. Or if I attack you or criticize you or something, and maybe I have you in the corner in some way where you can't psychologically or conceptually can't get out of what I'm accusing you of, then you might want to make a statement like, "Oh, I give up," and turn around and walk out, rather than continue to react and not react, but act in relationship to what is happening. We want to get away from it. So and the way to do that is move this in the other room or down the hall or jump in our car and go away. Yes.
That's me bowing. Maybe like it seems like sometimes we just have to keep doing that. Maybe this is similar to what Chokodal was saying, his question of just having to just keep watching myself run
Yes.
away from the thing that's difficult.
I would agree. Yes, we might have to be a fool. We might have to realize that we are not going to control that. This doesn't mean that we don't, not hook up our vocal cords when we're having really negative feelings around a particular situation or person. But we wouldn't be necessarily stuffing it. We would be aware of the negativity, but the word I often use is we're responsible for how we feel. We know that the tendency is to want to blame. The tendency is to want to we don't have to go the other way and take credit for the situation. Just all you have to do is do it with the body. You don't have to do it with the intellect. You don't have to particularly believe that you're at fault. Just feel it. As it shows up in your body, it's yours. It's your body-mind complex in terms of there's any separate situation called physical form. That's about as close as you can get to any reality of an identity. And that's only going to last for a short length of time. And then the consciousness that arose as this form or any form goes back into, when I say goes back into, it just doesn't go back into anything. Just when the body's not there, then this consciousness, if I were to use a literal visual explanation, it just doesn't have any location anymore. It was located in Natsumi or Sokuzan and acted in life, in interaction in the so-called getting on the stage of life and acting with other people and beings that think they're real. But when this comes apart, there's just consciousness. And you can realize that now. You might still have disagreements with people. You might still have negative emotions come and go and be difficult or be easy. But you won't necessarily believe your thoughts anymore. No matter how rough and ragged around the edges they get, you realize that they are unreal. It's a powerful understanding, and it's available to everyone. Anyone could understand this. More?
To me bowing. It seems like there's some things that we can choose to enter into relationship with. Like when you talk about the current events and the chaos that's going on in the
Yeah.
world, we can choose to read the news,
Yes,
or not. We can have relationships with people and know that they're probably going to trigger that pattern in us. Um, is there anything where we need to move towards things that we think might be difficult?
as a general response, I would say don't do anything unless you have to. So what does that mean? It means that you're on receive, smelling, tasting, hearing, seeing, remembering, thinking. Just don't interrupt thoughts, don't interrupt emotions, just receive the whole thing as that arises. Then out of your awareness practice, by training yourself to just see, be very generous, giving everything your attention, all the sense fields are included, including the mind. There's other kinds of meditation training that are different, that talk about stopping the mind or controlling the mind or creating some kind of a dynamic in consciousness that is mindful. Practiced it for a long time. Don't teach it. Not against it. People need to do that. They should do it. But coming back to what seems to be your inquiry, I would say, don't do anything. And if you just are receiving from the situation, that sometimes can come to you in such a way, well, I have to stop that or move that or scold that or do something in regards to that. You probably don't. I mean, obviously, if it's something, a tree falling over, you need to get out of the way. But that's very situational. If trees falling, move. You don't need to think, is this consciousness only? Then why is this part of consciousness turned into a big piece of lumber? You know, by that time you'll be probably not alive anymore. You're smiling, but no one's, well, one person's smiling. So, what I'm saying is that what I'm encouraging you, and I encourage myself to do, is just receive what shows up. It can be so painful, especially if you see this person, that person, they're just acting in such a way that and you're looking at something that seems to be very simple and almost flat. It's so ordinary, just every day. Someone is making what is this? Making what's the saying? Mountain out of a molehill kind of thing. So they're just blowing everything up, and then that's the area where we get triggered, and anything that we're hiding out, or anything we have, some resentment comes out, and so, oh, here's where I can get rid of some of my resentment. Here's a person that's treating me unfairly or acting in a way that everything starts to become a big echo chamber of aggression. Who shot first, and who's got the biggest weapons, and mostly a masculine thing happening there. So, insofar as you can receive. And this doesn't mean that you won't do something, but if you're on receive, you really are about the awareness of what's happening, not the item that's arising in the awareness. If you're stuck on items, and this is materialism, whether it's psychological, spiritual, or materialism. So the idea is to be aware of all that, and then it will be, my word for it is doesn't make people too happy to hear this, but it's called choiceless. You won't make choices. You just know what to do next. It'll be three people, all might be doing lots of different things. And you might even think, why would they do that when it's obvious we have to do this? But you can't convince people who are wound up in knots in their heart. You can't really modify, change them, manipulate them, control them. Can't even control ourselves more.
Not seeing you going, it seems like we would just find ourselves in whatever situation that we're already in.
Is that a response to what I said? We would just find ourselves in that situation that we're already in. Did you say that?
I said that, yeah.
That's correct. And that would be it. You would just find yourself in the situation. Direct perception of emptiness that looks like things. It's a direct perception of what this is, but it's empty. It's empty of how it appears, this, big thing, small thing, smart thing, not so smart thing. And it's full of what it is. It's empty of what we think it is. And it's completely full and completely radiant of Buddha nature, consciousness only. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Yoke Bowing, question from Navid in Iran on YouTube.
Naveed,
Navid Bowing, does consciousness only have any certain mood or feeling? Bowing.
no. Consciousness is a way, is a word that we are using and has been used for centuries to describe the apparent, again, an illusion of the spatial dynamic that where nothing is happening, which things arise and come and go. They're born and they die. They're born and they die. The image that's often used is the mind is like the sky, the consciousness is like the sky. Nothing happening there. There's nothing there. There isn't anything there. It's just an open dimension space. And clouds show up, birds fly through it, rainbows appear, lightning appears, things come and go and come and go and come and go. So I don't know, Naveed, if I got close to what you're looking for. Is there more?
Yoke Bowing, he has a second part to the question. When anger is happening in the consciousness, how does consciousness only feel? Bowing.
Consciousness only doesn't feel. More. I'm glad I was able to help you, Naveed. So when I say consciousness doesn't feel, feeling can arise, but it's not, consciousness is not feeling. There's no personhood in consciousness. And a personhood does arise in consciousness, and it is witnessed or seen or observed, or however you want to characterize it. We see that it's there, it's vivid, it's got sharp edges, and it's shoving its elbows around, but it's unreal. And you don't have to stop it. You don't have to promote it. And you certainly don't have to ignore it. You could just be with all things, as the third pure precepts is encouraging us to do. But people would rather, quite often, people would rather just run away into some kind of circus of events rather than just observe this incredible precept that was given to us so many centuries ago. Is that it?
That's it for now.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yoke Bowing. I'm curious about the importance of wanting to see the truth. I'm wondering how to cultivate it, because it looks like I can't find it, or when I do find it, it feels very phony, or that there's a lot of materialism attached to it.
The inspiration, bodhicitta, a relative bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta, fancy words for I want to know what this is. I'm not going to settle. Don't settle. Don't settle for anybody's word. Even the Buddha said, work out your salvation with diligence before he passed. That's one translation. And he was probably speaking in what, Pali? You find out. But he's encouraging you, and I'm not the Buddha, obviously, but I'm saying a similar thing. I'm saying, find out who you are. When you talk about it, we talk about other people, we interact with people, but
That's a brand new clock that I didn't turn the alarm off on.
I like to watch it when people take responsibility for extraneous noise. Notice she didn't blame me, my clock. So this is one of the reasons we have an altar. These are all empty. There's no, this is a chunk of wood in the shape of a person. So use whatever form you can to return to, you have an altar, you have a Buddha figure, or if you don't, if you have a Dharma book, or maybe all you have is a candle and an incense holder. It doesn't, and I'm trying to say this for anybody, just you don't need anything other than some place to sit down and commit yourself to it. I'm going to see what this is no matter what. No matter how I feel, I'm not going, my feelings, my emotions, nothing is taking me this way or that way. And if it pulls on me, I'm going to look exactly at what this is, be with all things. And that includes being with the pulling. That does not mean agreeing with it. That's the passion, aggression, and ignorance that can be usurped by the self-centered mind, the ego mind, to justify activity that is just perpetuates the circularity, right and wrong, right and wrong, success and failure, heaven and earth. And here's the big one. This is the one that locks it down, that makes it just about impossible, not just about, makes it impossible to see this with a thinking mind, the logical mind. You can't do it. You cannot figure this out. Life and death are not two separate things. You have to see it. Otherwise, you'll just believe you're alive and believe that you're going to die. Or when people, their bodies disappear, you think they've gone somewhere. And when you think that, you actually reinforce that. There isn't a single being that's ever lived that you can't speak to right now. How do I know that? I don't know it. I don't know it relatively. I'm not going to write any books about it. Well, maybe I will. Well,
Nishka bowing. Maybe I'm just looking for other ways to cultivate it, or maybe it doesn't feel genuine for me to use that language to see what's true. If anything, it feels like my entire path is your motivation and
Whose motivation?
you in particular.
well, it
that-
might have to be for a while. That's how I stayed on this path, is because of my teachers, especially Trungpa. Couldn't have done this without him. But that's not about worshiping a guru. I'm not talking about that. There's no one there. So the inspiration has to come from here. And that's all I'm encouraging you as your teacher to say, look within. Don't do anything I say. I'm probably not going to tell you much anyway. And people might think I'm ordering them around, but I don't think I am. Well, find it here. And I would say this to maybe to help you a little bit. I don't see someone who's disingenuous. I don't see someone who's lying to themselves. No, I don't see that in you. You wouldn't be wearing that brown rock suit if I thought that. And that doesn't mean that anyone I've ordained or given a precepts or Dharma transmission to is doing something wrong. They're doing exactly what they need to do. There's no one to correct anywhere. Can't do it. You cannot make a mistake. But if you think you make a mistake, you'll torture yourself. You'll torture others. You'll blame yourself. You'll blame others. Pride and shame. Pride and shame. Not two different things. More. Thank you for the question.
Terry bowing.
Go ahead, Terry. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Sokuzan. Thank you. I have a question around what you said around consciousness only doesn't feel, feeling arises, and that there's no personhood in consciousness.
Yes.
Is that on, are you talking about sensory? Because the other thing that keeps coming up when I hear you say that is that there's consciousness only. So I'm feeling a bit confused about that. Bowing.
So Terry, what's happening here, we're stuck on, we've got the concepts. We only have so much to work with, and that's concepts, and they're like blocks. They're solid. They have structure. Then the emotions are like more like concepts that don't have any shape, and they have a lot more power because they're able to go through all of the whole fabric, the whole porousness of the consciousness. And this is why you can have intense feelings. You might have intense thoughts too, sometimes called paranoia. That's one of them. But there's an emotional dynamic that hooks up with that. So trying to get to what it is that I can help you with that you might want to know, that I might have a response that would be helpful if you could maybe clarify a little bit more.
Mhm.
I'll get to you next, James, so you can rest your hands.
Terry bowing. Is then what are feelings and and thoughts if there's no personhood bowing?
So those are just, it's like, I'm not making light of what you're asking. It's a powerful question, but it's just like, what is a twig? Sorry, 'cause I'm just drawing your cabana. What is this? What is it fundamentally? We don't know. We give it a name, and as soon as we give it a name, we separate from it. So same thing with feelings or emotions. We separate from it and give it some kind of a structure in consciousness where it has some kind of status as a thing, an emotion, or a status as a twig, and we separate ourselves from it. And that separation gets more and more extensive the more we think about it, converse about it, read books about it, and keep building all kinds of structures in consciousness. There's a lot of famous psychologists that made big names for themselves. Sigmund Freud, C.G. Jung, Alfred Adler, and on down the list of all kinds of people that were able to use these structures to talk about this. But you, as a meditator, if you're listening to me and want some feedback, I'm giving it to him, saying, just observe. What is when I say consciousness doesn't feel, I'm not saying feelings don't arise in consciousness. If the feelings that are available to you, if they arose in your consciousness, it could just blow the top of your head off. I'm just saying that consciousness doesn't have an owner, and neither do the emotions, but they become personified when it's turned into anger, when it's turned into warfare, and all the polarities that reinforce the sense of a separate being. So powerful. So when I say well, consciousness doesn't have a feeling, I'm not getting rid of feelings and saying that consciousness only doesn't have any, no emotions arise there. If you see consciousness only, everything is available. It's just like all the doors and windows of your whole structure of your personhood has just come apart, and you realize that you feel everything everywhere because you are consciousness. I'm not trying to be romantic, but you are the sun, you are the moon, you are the earth. You're not a separate person. This is an illusion that's walking around on 2 feet, going to bed, getting up, having breakfast, having coffee, wondering about bills, trying to balance your checkbook. I guess we don't use those anymore, do we? I mean, trying to do little mundane things that reinforce the feeling that we're somebody, we're here. I'm glad my headache went away. Constant comment around to reinforce the self-centeredness, when the fundamental understanding is just consciousness, and what arises in it is illusory. I don't care how intense the emotion is or how crazy the thought patterns or anger is. It's unreal. Something further, Terry?
Terry Bowling, no, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, James. What do you have?
James Bowling, how do you have compassion for somebody who's forced to slaughter animals for the ones they love and are about to be lynched by vegetarians?
Are you writing any books, James?
Uh, no, but I mean, I was just thinking about the news lately,
So I'm not
and I
sure.
was thinking,
I have a feeling about what you might want to know, and I can track what you said. But the most important thing you can hear from me, listening to me, which you join us quite often, you ask lots of questions. Most important thing you can hear from me, and I'm emphasizing it, is to sit down, hold still, and train your mind to see clearly. Because right now, your intellect, which is very powerful, not a compliment, is overriding your awareness. You're so good at using concepts and ideas and stories like the one you just told. They're so good that they just flood. It's like it's not a judgment, it's just an observation. You just have an incredible sky that's full of clouds. So just be the sky. Practice being the sky. Take 20 minutes a day or 20 minutes every 3 days, whatever, but do some of it. Sit down, hold still, sit symmetrical, and just be the sky. Just receive everything that shows up without comment, without additional thought. And if you do have a lot of additional thought, then include that as something to receive or be aware of. You can do that. And coming back just to briefly touch on your question, those situations are difficult, horrible, challenging. But people are suffering everywhere, and they're doing everything they can to get out of the suffering, including torture other people, including end their lives, as we know. But that isn't just one person who's a bad guy hurting all the good guys. This is unreal. If you believe that, you're going to go to war, and you're going to try to join the side of the good, which is not what I'm talking about here.
should you have sympathy for a person who, through their past karma, has found himself in that situation by identifying with it?
Yes, I do.
And should you have sympathy for people that force other people to have to choose between their loved ones or themselves for survival?
Are we in a courtroom?
No, I'm just
What do you really want
asking.
to? I know what you're asking. I know what you're asking, but what do you want to hear from me? Well, are you trying to pin me down somewhere? I'm pinnable.
No, I'm just trying to ask how you should view people that create bad
Yeah.
situations
Have you
in the world.
noticed? Let me stop you right there. Have you noticed when you say, "How do you feel?" how you should feel. I shouldn't feel. You have no say-so about how you feel. When people say, well, I shouldn't feel that way. Well, that's the very issue of the situation, the rotation, thinking there's a right and wrong. If you feel some way, it is validated by the fact, and I mean this with a capital F, the fact that you're feeling it. If you disavow or get rid of anything that's showing up in your mind stream, you'll continue to spin. I'm not condemning you to anything. I'm just pointing out the weather. It rotates.
So it legitimizes it if you acknowledge it in any way.
You could say it that way.
Is that right? All right.
So I'm going to,
Thanks, Sokuzan.
yeah, you're quite welcome. Thank you for putting up with my my response to you. Probably wasn't particularly comfortable. Is there a final question from anyone on the screen? Jisheen?
Bowing. You said that we separate ourselves from something in front of us when we name it. Is being open, curious, and observe keeps us in connection with what is arising in front of us?
Yes, it does. But I'm not saying you should stop naming things. You might name everything. I sometimes say to someone if every morning they wake up depressed, I say we could start out by changing what you're calling it. Stop calling it depression. Have a little bit lighten things up a little bit. Call it cucumbers. And then the next day call it something else. It's a similar feeling, but you actually know it's not the same. If you've ever had any depression, which I've had some of that, otherwise I couldn't speak about it at all. Don't try to get rid of it. You're just going to create a circle. It will just go in hiding. It goes behind the curtains until the moon goes into Taurus, and then you're screwed. I'm joking. I'm joking. It's a joke.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You have such a good sense of humor, Jasheen. Is this online?
Yes.
Who's it from?
One from Martine and another from Ath.
I'll take both of those and then we'll close.
Milka Bowing. Ath asks, in a blame-inducing encounter, which is more dangerous on the big scale of our trajectory towards non-separateness, is that blaming others or blaming ourselves, Bowing?
Could be some. It's important to, even though it says all dharmas are without blame, this is a teaching. Even though it can be said, don't, keep your own, be responsibility for what arises. Don't shift your negative feelings off on others through finger pointing or blaming. So even though that's said, what I would say is most important thing that you can hear is be aware, because some things that arise in consciousness, including intense anger at someone else, that if you do anything with it other than feel it, try to stop that, it was a traditional way of talking about it, just goes underground. You ignore it. And it's better to be genuine, be the crap you can't get rid of, not by taking a swing at somebody or yelling at someone. I'm not sure if I'm moving too far away from what that person is asking or not. Awareness, always about awareness, not right and wrong. And other people teach meditation Buddhism differently. You can always just listen to them, or you can listen to me. Go ahead.
Milka Bowing. Question from Martine in Latvia. Is the feeling of emotional pain a form of payback or not, Bowing?
Well, it could certainly feel that way. That's the payback that arises. It's just participating and validating the circularity of the feelings. So I would say it can show up, and as long as you're buying into right and wrong and a cause and effect, and running your whole life as if it was some kind of legal system, then it will feel like that. But fundamentally, no one is to blame for anything. There are no separate beings anywhere.
Milka Bowing. Just a compliment from Dr. Brenda Shoshana. I thank Sokuzan Roshi for his beautiful teachings and years of dedication to all of and to Dharma. Only gratitude deserving now. Brenda Shoshana bowing.
Thank you, Doctor. We can close now.